chiefs came to the door. I said, "Oh, hello, come in. We're having a meeting upstairs." So I went up the stairs and looked okay, look and make sure you got the exit there, things are going to happen, And so I sat down they said, sit down, we're having a meeting. Sat down on the chair and they started working on me. Just a few people there. And then I started feeling this energy flowing in my hands. I thought, wow. I said, yeah, that's it. And then what happened is they started explaining to me what my catches were. They said, oh, you're catching on Agya, you've been doing lots of reading. I said, yeah. I said, wow, these people are really good. they tell, what's happening. And I said, yeah, I've been doing lots of reading. And they said, oh, there's a problem with your mother. What happened is I left home and I wasn't being in contact with my family, but more what I discovered afterwards is that that your parents are inside you. And because my mum was worrying about me, I was actually feeling the physical pain. It was actually a pain like someone had whacked me. I thought it was maybe down to work because of the plaster, but they said, no, it's to do with your mother. So I thought, oh God, I better ring her up and go and see her and tell her I'm fine. Because I was concentrating, right, I'm going to find this thing. So they explained that to me, and then they said a few more things, and I thought, wow, that's it. But then I said to myself, oh my God, if I tell anyone, they're going to say I'm completely mad. So I got up out of the chair, said thank you very much, and then they said, oh, we have it every week, you come back and see us. I said, and I ran all the way home, and it was a steep hill, and they said, I ran all the way home. I said, I found it, that's it. So I thought I found it now, and then when I went back to see my family, and I said, what, I can go back to work now because I found it. So people were saying to me, oh, there's something different about you. I said, what do you mean? He said, yeah, there's some change in you, tell us what it is. I thought, no, if I say anything to people, they're going to start asking me lots of questions about it. So I said, no, it's nothing. No. They said, no, there's something about you. We noticed there's some change in you. I said, yeah, when I find out a bit more, I'll let you know. So in those days, they didn't used to answer many questions. Afterwards, I discovered that I was asking lots of questions which they couldn't answer. So I kept saying to them lots of questions, and they said, okay, take this tape, listen to that. So I would come back and say, look, I listened to that now. Have you got any more? And kept asking them lots of questions. They said, we don't know. I said, who knows? They said, Shri Mataji. I said, when can I see her? They said, you can't see her. I said, what do you mean? Is this a cult or what? What's going on? Why can't I see this lady? And they said, do you want to see her? I said, yes. They said, oh, okay. We go and see her every Monday. I said, oh, would you like to come? I said, of course I want to come. I'm asking you all these questions you can't answer. So they said, okay, be here at such and such. There's a minibus. I jump in the minibus, go down to London, see Shri Mataji at Caxton. Oh, I thought, wow, yeah. She is, there's something special about her. I could feel vibrations. I said, well, I know it's something. And then after a few more weeks, they said, there's a ceremony we have. It's called a puja. And this one was a Sahasrara puja. This was the 5th of May in 1981. So they said to me, would you like to come? I said, yeah, of course. I'd like to come along. So they said, turn up here. We've got a minibus. We come down in a minibus with us. I said, great, So they didn't explain to me about anything about it, what you could wear or anything like that. So I got my flask, my packed lunch, a bag, It'll be a long day, they said. So I turned up at Chelsham Road, sit down in the room, and it was packed. There were loads of people there. And Shri Mataji's chair was there where it normally is, and I was sitting back. And then she gave a speech, and then she said, all those people who are here for the first time, who come from a country which is not from England, can ask for a boon for their country. So I thought, wow, I understood what that word meant. You can ask for 3 wishes. So I thought, great. So I thought, what can I ask for now? I said, okay. For at the time, the Rastafarian movement was growing big, and so I said, well, but I knew that it wasn't good, because you know, I met people who were growing up in my community who were doing it, and they were smoking stuff and going off their head and all that. So this needs to die down. That was one. Second one, I said, they keep telling me that this marijuana is a holy herb, something to do with King David, something. I said, this needs to be neutralized. So I said, Shri Mataji, you know, for this thing. And then the third one, she said, I'll tell you what to say. Okay. So she said, you should ask that the Pentecostal movement subsides. At the time, they were having busloads of people come, coaches going down from Bristol to London, Billy Graham, it was all people coming back like zombies, you know. So she said, you should say that this needs to be stopped. So that was the third boon, so I said that. And so that was good. So I'm sitting there, and then at the time, Gregoire was translating what I was saying to Shri Mataji, whether it was because it was a Jamaican accent or deep Bristolian, I don't know. But when I was speaking, then Gregoire was translating what it actually meant to Shri Mataji. So I sat back down, and so I'm sitting there with my hands out meditating, and then all of a sudden, they gave at the end of the puja lots of presents to Shri Mataji. So she took the wrapping off, and either side of her was, you see those things with the wicks on, with the flame. So she took, looking at her, on her left-hand side, she would undo the wrapping and put it down. And all of a sudden, the wrapping paper caught on fire and started going up to the ceiling. And everyone was in the room and nobody was moving. And I was thinking, what's happening? Why is there nobody moving? You know, this lady's going to catch on fire. When paper from wrapping paper burns, it's so fast. So I thought, oh my God. So I jumped up in the air, and I had a really nice brown jacket, you know, suede, corduroy jacket, dark brown. So I jumped up in the air, ran over, ripped it off from my back like that, and just ran over and damped down the flames, and then put the fire out, and then sat back down. And in that time, it was like time stood still. Nobody moved, nobody said nothing, nobody was moving. And I was thinking, well, what's happening with these people? Is there nobody, you know, I just sat back down. Even up to now, all these years later, no one's ever asked me about it. At the time, nobody said, what were you doing? Nothing. So I was thinking, you know, this is...
I was there.
I just sat back down. Okay.
Thank God I wasn't.
Oh yeah, this is Linda's house. I think it was all over in about 2 seconds. I don't know. Upstairs, you were somewhere else. So I just sat back down, and then I was thinking, wow, you know, these people they're slightly different. You know? I'll stick on with it, you know. And then so that was my first. That was happened within 2 months, and that was my sort of interaction.
Can we come back to you from what That's great. Thank you for that. We'll have to ask Reza also exactly what were you thinking when you watched him go. But before we do that, Carol, I think, can you listen to where are you at? Where were you at in your head, madam?
Where was I at? Well, I was in Sheffield at the time, and I think what happened really is, in retrospect, that I was studying in Sheffield landscape architecture, and I walked past sort of this bookshop where they sold incense and all sorts of things, and I sort of walked back again because I saw this picture on the door, and it was of a lady with long hair, and I just sort of read what was underneath. To this day I can't remember what it was, but I saw the picture, I thought, and then I just walked on. I forgot all about it. But before that, I would never be someone who was looking, reading anything that I sort of was unusual or doing anything like that. And I come from a very sort of Christian background and everything. And but after that incident of seeing Mother's picture, which it was, that I started reading things and allowing myself to sort of seek, and even to sort of go back and read the Bible as though I was just sort of reading it, for my own sake rather than sort of anything else. And then I came across a book which was by Gurdjieff, who's someone I never heard of, didn't know anything about, but inside it said, you need a guru somewhere. So I thought, oh my God, yes, I need a guru. That's what I need, a guru. And so I was looking, and I started going back to church because I stopped doing that, going to the Baha'is because my brother was trying that. And finally somebody in the house that I was living in said, oh, we've gone to this thing, you'd be good at that. You're looking around, you're asking questions, you come to this. So we went to this just a program in Sheffield. Ray Harris was talking, and he was talking about evolution and everything. I thought, oh, this is interesting. Then they put this tape of Mother on, and Mother started talking about, and God made this beautiful world, and he just put rivers here and trees there and mountains here just to make it beautiful. And I thought, that was interesting because I was studying landscape architecture and trying to design things and everything. I thought, well, that sounds good. And then I was worked on, I think it was John Glover and Graham's wife, Gail Pottinger, and they worked on me and asking me what you feeling, are you feeling the cool breeze on your hands or on your head? And I couldn't feel anything out of the top of my head, and then I started to cry, because I was in an emotional place at that time, and then they said, but can you feel anything else? I said, yes, I can feel this cool coming down on my knees. That's good, they said. So I thought, good. And then I went home, and oh yes, and they asked me, why do you think we're here? Ray said, oh yes, why do you think we're here? I said, we're here to enjoy, because strangely enough, before I'd come to the programme, I had been sitting sort of under a tree somewhere, sort of thinking, why are we here? And this thought had come into my head, from somewhere. We're here to enjoy. And I was so not enjoying myself at that time, I thought, this is very strange, And then Ray asked me, and he said, yes, that's what we're here to enjoy. And there was Mother's photograph, and it was a puja photo actually at the meeting, and I kept saying to John Glover, yes, but who is this lady? Because I felt that coming from Christian background, an icon is not it's a photo, and you're all sort of saying, who is this lady? Okay, so I kept wanting to know, who is this lady? And eventually, in a few months' time, I think it was in the summer that I came to the programme in Sheffield. I think it was maybe 3 months or 2 months later, we all went down to a puja in Chowsham Road, and Mother was there sitting next to the fireplace, and I was sort of almost at the back, and it was, I was sort of sitting like this, and there were a million people around it. It was very tight, and just looking at Mother and saying, Mother, who are you? Who are you? And coming back home and sort of looking at Mother's photograph again and thinking, well, I know who you are. And then going again to the next puja, we went down to the next puja, and again, Mother's the first puja I went to Mother's feet when she asked for new people to come, and she said, what are you doing? What are you doing? Your liver's so bad. I said, architecture or landscape architecture, and she told us to say, Mother, you're the architect of all architects. You say that 3 times, and suddenly you feel it's all sort of cleared out. And after the second puja, so I asked her about the Baha'is, and she said, well, they do drink and smoke. And I thought, that's an interesting answer. And I knew that because my brother couldn't give up smoking, he was a Baha'i. And then coming back from that puja, then I just felt, well, I just love you. And that was really it for me. And I think later on then I went to a meeting at somebody's house, and Mrs. Harris, Ray's mum, was there, bless her, and there was this big photo of Mother with the blue sari, and people were asking, people were talking about Shri Mataji, and Mrs. Harris just sat there. She said, well, that they do say she might be the Virgin Mary. And I sort of thought, yes, I sort of took this on board and sort of thought, yes, this wow, this is a possibility. And I think just that was it, really. So a big blessing, really, to come to
Mrs.
Sahaja.
Harris, of course, was Jewish.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, a bit of a ring-in actually, because I got my realization in Australia, so it's not in. But I very soon came to England. About 4 or 5 months after I got my realization, I ended up in England, and I never thought of myself as a seeker. Somebody told me afterwards, "Oh, you." I always picked you as a seeker. I've gone, "What's a seeker?" I didn't even know the word guru. So, at that stage, my lifestyle was, you'd have everything you'd think you'd want in a nice flat overlooking the harbour in Sydney, and a fast car, and a job where you're travelling around the world. But there was a big hole in my life, and it was I reached that sort of emotional state where everything was starting to fall apart and go wrong, and I had come back from a long haul trip, and I was tired, and I was just going into the supermarket to get some milk and stock up. And this girl who lived quite near my flat, who I knew very vaguely, and she was often asking me to parties and things, I thought, well, she's crazy, I'm never going to her parties or anything. She said, "Oh, okay, how are you going?" And I've gone, "Oh God, my life is like this." And so I'm having this great whinge to her, and she's banging me on my left shoulder all the time. I thought, why is she hitting me on the left shoulder? I was feeling so tired, having a nice whinge. And she said, she said, "What you need is this lady." And she pulled her pendant up like this, and I've gone, oh, okay then, I thought, what do you say? I thought, nice. She said, "You come to my house you come to my house on Sunday night." This was a Friday. It was the 1st of August, 1980. I remember. And I said, okay. So having returned down parties and things she'd invited me to before, suddenly I said, out of spontaneously, "Yes, I'll come." And I remember walking to the dairy department to get my milk and everything, and standing there thinking, I don't feel tired anymore. I felt like this rush of energy. I felt fantastic. It was amazing. I never had another cigarette. I was wanting to give up cigarette. I never had another cigarette. I went home and wrote these Dear John letters and sorted out all my love life. And so I had no idea what was happening. I was just suddenly, everything was falling into place. And all I had seen was Mother's picture on the pendant. And then I went to her place on the Sunday, and they sat me down in the kitchen and put Mother's picture there and said, "Put your hands out." And I thought, what? I thought I knew I shouldn't have come to this crazy woman's place. They were knitting away, and saying, "Oh, she's got it, she's got it. Can you feel this?" And I'm thinking, well, I should look at her eyes. Look at this. Can you feel? I thought, no, I can't feel anything. I thought, oh dear. Anyhow, they gave me this picture and sent me home, and she said, "By the way, she's God, And I've gone, okay. I remember putting it on the stick.
I think you should tell them that you were a flight attendant. You were a very down-to-earth lady.
Yeah, well, as I said, I didn't have all the obvious material advantages of what people would have thought was a wonderful life at that stage. But I do remember putting the black and white, that official photograph of Shri Mataji, down by the gear stick of my car and driving home and thinking, well, who am I to say she's not? So I give myself credit for having an open mind. But because I think she told me that straight off, that I thought, it's between her and I, and we have to work this out. Because I think if I'd come to a public program, I'd listened to a lecture, or I'd looked at the Sahaja Yogis around me, I would have gone, no, they're all crazy. Because to me, the seeking was more like, it wasn't, I didn't even know the word guru. So it was more, I had to have the answer this lifetime. That's all I knew. I didn't want to sit and be 80 years old with that blank look on my face and thinking it's all over and I still don't know the answer. I thought, I'm not dying till I get the answer. And of course, that's it. And I always knew that something special was going to happen to me when I was 35, because I was always going on about turning 35. And they go, what's so special about that? I've gone, I don't know. It's just that's when I'm going to be complete. I'll be complete at 35. They said, what do you mean? I've gone, I don't know what I mean, but it's going to be complete. And of course, it was my 35th year that I got my realization, when I was 35. But I had made such a fuss about turning 35 that my sister had given me a surprise birthday party, which was the most disastrous night of my life, because she'd just gone through my address book and had asked everybody, because I said, why did you do this? It was horrible. You had the plumber there and people I never wanted to meet, and it was just such a dreadful night. And she said, well, you've made such a fuss about turning 35 of your life, I thought we'd better do something special for you. But it was some months later that I actually got my birthday present. It was the 1st of August 1980. Yeah. And 4 months later, I was transferred in my job to London, so, which was a miracle because, you know, Mother had just, orchestrated by Shri Mataji from beginning to end. So I guess I was a seeker.
On planes.
Yeah.
Travelling around.
Yes. I always thought I'd find it somewhere in the next port. That's what the answer would be somewhere else, you know, but it was always there.
Lady Greshna.
Okay, can we?
So I will be brief and try to be.
It's your story of how you came to Poland is amazing.
So I just want to say that I was brought up as a Catholic, and I felt that was not it. I felt very in the church. I felt sort of like an intruder. So I became a communist, and then I discovered that communism wasn't very good either. So I didn't really know what I wanted and what was going to happen, but I was obviously, I didn't think I was a seeker, but obviously I was, because it's, people didn't seem to make sense, because they were living with, all the time with contradictions in their lives, and I couldn't make it out, you know, what it was all about. And one day, I cycled to the lake. It was 5 o'clock in the morning, and I was quite tired because it was quite a long drive, and I just stretched on the ground. The sun was rising, the daisies were growing around, and I just suddenly became one with the nature. And I instantly thought, well, this is God, because it was such a strong experience. So I came back home and I announced to everybody that God really exists. And I thought, well, yes. And I was trying to come to England for 7 years, but I was refused passport. After this experience, everything started to happen very quickly in my life, so I could actually get the passport and come to England. And then in England, it was in 1977 when I came, and then I came across different seeking books, so I bought lots of them, and I was going to different meditation groups, and I was training to be a Hatha Yoga teacher. And then one day somebody told me, there was various people, a week before I came to the program in Caxton Hall, various people meeting me at random, and they were looking at my hands and they were saying, you really have healing hands. I thought, well, I don't think so, but if they say so. And then a friend of mine, she came to my flat and she said, you know, I met this lady, she healed my back, she's really a great healer. So I thought maybe I better come along and check it out. And I came to Caxton Hall, and it was quite amazing. Shri Mataji was wearing a white sari, and there was this this big Indian standing lamps. They were on both sides of her, burning, and she looked very majestic, and she looked very, very powerful. And she was talking to people. She gave a talk, and then I was sitting there, and then Shri Mataji just asked us to go into meditation, and I had this very strong experience, like a fountain just opened at the base of my spine and just went really through my stomach and up. So I was completely shaken by the experience. And then I thought, that's it. I went to Mother's feet, and then because I had burning in my heart, obviously I was doing Hatha Yoga, so I was thinking, what is this burning? Then Shri Mataji just looked at me and she said, your problem is here. And she was very sweet. She was saying, do you catch colds? I was thinking, colds? Yes, I do. And then she was saying, yes, you are very joyful, you know, because I was smiling and she was smiling. And then I just knew I arrived at my destination but the interesting thing was that next day I started to feel very strange, because I was walking along the street and I felt that I had Shri Mataji's hair. And it was so bizarre, and I was walking just like she did. I thought, am I ever going to be myself again? Because I was walking, I was moving how she did, and it was quite strange. Later on, I find out obviously that Shri Mataji says that we are all one, so we are in her body. So from that perspective, now I understand that the experience was I was taken by Shri Mataji into her body through this self-realization. And of course, then I tried to find out. That was very difficult thing. I tried to find out all about the secret things like the ashram. It was quite impossible to do because nobody wanted to give me the address. And so Douglas was operating the recording equipment, so I said to him at the next meeting, because Shri Mataji wasn't there, I said to him, maybe I can help you. He said, all right. Then I said, but by the way, do you know the address of the ashram? He just looked at me, he checked my kundalini, and he said, I suppose I can give it to you. So I went to the ashram the following week, and then there was the Sahasrara Puja 1980, and I just thought I was just popping in, but the puja started, so I stayed. And then, to my great surprise, Shri Mataji called me to do the puja. And then it went on for quite a while, but then it was strange, because after the puja there was a havan, which is like normally is the other way around, but after the puja there was a havan, and Shri Mataji asked me to do the havan with everybody else, and the havan was 1,000 names with translations. So it took about, I think it took about 4 hours. So I was sort of thinking, after 20 minutes, I felt, I started to feel amazing, but at the same time things were clearing out. I started to feel, my legs are not really up to it, though I was quite used to sitting on the floor and everything. And then I looked at this, outside the window, and it was getting dark. But I came at, it was 9 o'clock in the morning, so it was getting dark. And then there was a music program after the Havan. But by the time I left, I really felt, very, very clear inside. And I think ever since, I never missed any programs or any pujas. I couldn't have enough of them. So.
Thank you. So Lewis, where were you at in your head? Were you somewhere in Portugal here?
I think I was going mad probably. And very sick, but sometimes I was well. It was on and off. Sometimes very well, sometimes not off at all. Of course, meeting Mother is the greatest day of my life. It's something for which still today I'm very thankful to God to have that chance to meet Shri Mataji, and also the chance to somehow understand who she is on that meeting. Otherwise, I could have lost everything, because Shri Mataji was going to go away the next day, so time was short, So I think Shri Mataji and God made it easy for me. It had to be such that I had to understand it there and then. So there was a certain preparation before meeting Mother. Once I was on a motorbike and had a head-on collision, and with the car. The moment the motorbike hit the car, of course my body is up in the air. During that time I was up in the air. I knew I was going to die. And in that split second I saw my whole life, since birth, since I was born, something one cannot remember when you are a baby, up to that day. Then I saw my own funeral, I saw my parents, weeping over my body. Each and every person I have met in my whole life was there to see. And an angel up in the air who told me, what a big waste of a life, and a life which really had a purpose, so it's really wrong, And the next thing I hear a big bang. This was the bang of my helmet on top of the bonnet of the car. And then I fell on the floor, not a scratch, nothing, Very strange feeling, So how can someone see his whole life from beginning to end, including my own funeral, in less than a split of a second? So that was like an awakening experience. Then one day I was in bed at 4 a.m. My parents arrive home, they wake me up, and they show me a glance of the picture of Shri Mataji. They say, look at what we have found, And I said, wow, I went to sleep. In those days, of course, because I was very ill, I was always praying to Christ to send the dove of the Holy Ghost to land on top of my head. That's something I was always praying for, and because I knew I needed divine salvation, there was no way I could get out of that situation. But even though I prayed and prayed and prayed, nothing happens, as you probably know from experience, isn't it? But that night, after seeing a glance of Shri Mataji, I don't know why, when I woke up, there was a voice in my head, and I just knew this is the voice of Christ, but not for sure, I wasn't sure. And the words were, I was hungry and you didn't give me any food. I was naked and you gave me no clothes. I was ill, you didn't come to see me. I was in jail and you didn't come to see me either. Those words kept coming in my mind, very loud, and I knew, oh my goodness, these are the words of Christ, of course. Then I realized, yes, of course, you see, my cousin was in jail, and I had refused to go and see him in jail for 2 years, He was my age, but he had done some drug offenses, and I said, no way, I'm not going to visit him, And then I realized, my goodness, what a selfish person I am, not minding the fact I'm hurting my parents, my aunt, my cousin. I just don't care for other people. All I care is for myself. I'm really the most selfish, absurd person. So luckily I had this thought, I want to go and see my cousin in jail at last. My parents said, my God, what happened to you? Did you have an epiphany? We've been telling you this for 2 years. What is this? Well, I don't know. I have to go and see him today. That was my luck, because I went to see my cousin in jail that day for the first time, and on the way back, my parents went to see Shri Mataji again, so I was with them. That was my chance at last to see Shri Mataji. However, my girlfriend was atheist and a communist, and she refused to go. And Shri Mataji was staying in a place where you had to go up many stone steps. I don't know what came to me. I said, okay, you have to go. That's it. So I forced her up the steps, really by force. It was hurting her arm, I dragged her up all the way. So she had to come as well. So we arrived there. He was sitting on a small room. This is like an old castle, that place, very ancient building. And that room has no windows, where they told us to wait for Mother. And to go into the room, you have to go down some little steps of stone. And the door is so small, like in the ancient buildings, that to go inside, you have to little bit, bend down, at least for my height, to go inside that room, down the steps. Once you are in the room, it's like a cell. You cannot get out of there. And we were waiting there for Shri Mataji. Shri Mataji was having a siesta, and all my family with me there in that room. Then I saw some people passing through. These were people, I know those guys, they were Sahaja Yogis, but I had met them in other false gurus, I didn't believe I would come to a place like this to meet these guys, I jumped out of that room and went after them, As I went after them, I saw a lady coming out of the room, totally disheveled, the sari was not, Mother just came out of siesta, you see. And saw Mother from a distance, and had the glance of Mother, and had the same motorbike experience. Instead of seeing my whole life, present life, I saw all the past lives, and could see that Shri Mataji had been my personal mother all my lives. That's what that vision gave. So there you are. Mother made it very easy for me to know that she's the mother of the universe. I knew I had met Christ at last. That's what I wanted. It was an emergency, because Mother was going away the next day. But then Mother came to the room, that little room where we were standing with my family. And then Shri Mataji arrived at the room, she looked, and I was back there in the room sitting there next to my parents and my girlfriend, you know. Who is that? The first thing Shri Mataji said was, pointing at that girl, my girlfriend, who is that woman? What is she doing here? I lost my tongue. And Shri Mataji looked at me, you can translate. She knew that I knew English, you know. I had been studying English for 2 years, you know. I was really amazed, my goodness, she even knows that, you know. I said, who is that woman? What she's doing here? I said, it's my, I couldn't find the word, and I said, my girlfriend. My what? My girlfriend, you know, girlfriend? No, I don't know girlfriend. That doesn't exist. I said, you know, girlfriend, you know, girlfriend? No, it's indecent, it's absurd, it's obscene, you know. Then I asked him, do you really love her? Big silence, you know, I couldn't say I did because I didn't, you see. How mother knew everything. If you don't love her, then stop it, you know. This is indecent, it's very gross, it's appalling, you know. That was the introduction, you know. And then she went to work on my relatives who also had diseases, you know. She came again, come on, you translate. So I moved next to mother to translate. Then mother gave realization, and after realization mother decided to work on each and every person, and people made a queue. I was in a rush to go and be treated by mother. So every time my turn came, mother said, sir, go to the back of the queue. And I went to the back of the queue. Then I lost patience and I started jumping the queue. I appeared again. Sir, go to the back of the queue. 2 or 3 times mother sent me to the back of the queue. At last there was no one left, only me, you know. Then mother worked on me. And I was so ill that I think, I can't measure time in those situations, but mother must have worked on me 40 minutes or so it was serious. So that's why I had to be the last one, otherwise the people on the queue would have to wait so long. So at the end of those 40 minutes, suddenly without telling me, Shri Mataji did this, a neck crick, you know,
Yes.
and boom, and twisted my neck to one side and boom, big noise in the spine. That was incredible. And then suddenly, bang, cricked the head, opposite direction. Then without telling me, she picked up from her handbag a thing called Netranjan, I don't know how to say it properly, it's a kind of very strong eye medicine, and she put a massive amount on each eye. At that moment I went blind, you know, totally blind, you know, but it was so blissful that I said, you know, I don't mind, I like it, this is fantastic, you know, and that was the strongest, you know, experience of self-realization I cannot describe, you know, even though I was blind. Most people, you know, were blind, now they can see well. I could see, now I'm blind. But it was absolutely a tremendous experience. And this by now was about 2 a.m. Shri Mataji said, I'm going to go tomorrow to Spain, you know. So if you want to see me very, very first thing in the morning before I go to take the flight, you can come and see me. I said, fine, I'll come, of course. It was already 2 a.m., you know. What time shall I come? Shri Mataji said, very early, you know, early morning, please come, and I'll see you before going. I said, yes, early, but exactly what hour? Shri Mataji says, well, early, just come early. I said, yes, I understand, but exactly what hour, please? And Shri Mataji would tell me the exact hour to come, like an appointment, you know. I thought, this is very strange. So I said, well, you see, I don't want to come so early to wake you up or disturb you, you know. What time do you get up? I asked mother. Mother said, I get up at 4 a.m. So when shall I come? After you get up? Yes. So I said, that means 4 a.m., isn't it? Yes. So I came at 4 a.m., you see, except I didn't manage to make it at 4 a.m. My motorbike broke down, you know, ran out of petrol, so I had to run all the way to try and reach there at 4 a.m. I arrived at 5 a.m. pouring in sweat, you know. So I banged on the door and banged, you know. Then Maria Amelia came and opened the door, dressed in the pajamas, 5 a.m. What happened to you, you know? I was in sweat, was pouring, my suit was totally drenched. I had run for an hour to be on time. I was 1 hour late, in fact. I'm very late to see mother, it's 5 a.m. I'm here now, tell her that I've just arrived. And she said, you see, you need to meditate. Just sit down, you know. And okay, so how do I meditate? Very simple, you see that photograph there, you just look at it. I said, I was really offended. I came here to see the lady herself and you are giving me her photograph, you know. Is this what you call meditation? She said, try it, you know, try it, you know. Well, I tried it, you know, and that really was a very special meditation, even without Mother in person. About, I must have stayed 1 hour in meditation, then I got up, I didn't know what to do, so I cooked Mother breakfast. And I cooked all the wrong diet, of course, because Shri Mataji was on a special diet. Everything I cooked was wrong, you know. So Maria Amelia said, you know, I'm sorry, but you better eat it. I said, no way, give it to her and tell her this is a Portuguese breakfast. She might like it, you know. So Maria Amelia said, all right, fair enough, you know. She took the breakfast to Maria Amelia, to Shri Mataji. And Shri Mataji ate the whole breakfast, the Portuguese breakfast, you know, even though it was not at all her diet, you know. So that was also a special moment. Then at last Shri Mataji met me, you know, and she said, so now can you feel the vibrations? Because I have been meditating. And I said, no. So Shri Mataji, sitting from a distance of about 3 meters, she said, all right, what about now? Can you feel the vibrations? And she was throwing the vibrations at me. My God, that was like a cool breeze and a big wind, you know. And I said, no. And then she started blowing it. Every time she blew it, it was like having a bath, you know. Can you feel the vibrations now? I said, no. By then Maria Amelia was getting very irritated. Come on, what's wrong with you, you know? And Mother kept, all right, let's try again. She again blew the vibrations. Can you feel the vibrations? And I said, no. Of course I was feeling it, and Mother said, I know you can feel it. And I said, it's not vibrating, you know. I'm waiting for it to actually vibrate and shake, you know. And I said, oh, I see, it's a translation problem. The word vibration in Portuguese, you know, you expect it to vibrate. You know. So when I admitted, yes, I can feel the vibrations, then Mother said, in that case, you can come with me to the airport. We'll take you in my car. You can come in my car. So great, I'll come to the airport with Mother. As Mother entered the car, everybody got in the car, and then I was just getting inside the car, and the dog gets inside and takes my place. Sits next to Mother, big dog there, really, like this. That's where I was supposed to sit, next to Mother. And Shri Mataji picks the dog by the collar and starts pushing the dog out of the car. And the dog went really at Mother's hand, you know. And Mother pushed again the dog, and the dog. And then she looked at me, well, Luis, you see, I tried. I did my best. The thing is that she also recognized me, this dog. There's nothing I can do, you know. Why don't you take the bus, you know? So I went to the bus. I arrived at the bus. I didn't have any money. And my motorbike ran out of petrol, you see, miles away. I really felt stupid here, waiting for the bus without any money to go to the airport, you know. But that's what Mother told me to do, you know. Suddenly comes another Sahaja Yogi, you know, I knew them. Oh my God, this is the solution. Have you got a bit of spare change in it? I need to go to the airport, you know. They looked in their pockets. Good gracious, I don't even have enough to go on the bus myself. Okay, well, what shall we do? Well, Mother told you to go by bus, you go by bus. Okay, fine. I wait a bit longer. Third Sahaja Yogi comes. Have you got a bit of spare money? They check their pockets. Good gracious, I don't have enough money for myself also. 3 Sahaja Yogis now, if you count me, all waiting for the bus to go to the airport without money. I thought, this is mad, we need to do something about it. And they told me, oh no, in Sahaj, this is not how it works. You don't worry about things, you just give it a bandhan. Really? And that's how you go on the bus without money? Yes, you just give it a bandhan, alright? We gave it a bandhan. Suddenly, the guy one of the yogis goes berserk. He sees a taxi passing through. I know that guy. He stops the taxi, you know. Then this guy is a good friend of my brother, you know. He said, okay, let's get in. We are lucky. What a miracle, you know. We go on the taxi. They start talking. Oh my God, that was not a friend of his brother. Looks like. And in Portugal, you see, the taxi drivers, usually they have a cricket bat under the seat. If you don't pay the fare, you've had it, you know. So I said, you see, we are going to die. One of us is going to die today. And they said, oh no, in Sahaj, you see, this is not how we do things. We just give it a bandhan. I said, really? So we gave lots of bandhan. You see, we had waited about 40 minutes on the bus stop, you know. First me, then another yogi, then the taxi, you know. We must have started about 40 minutes after Mother. You know, we are going for our death now, you see. One of us is going to die, you know. This is the day, you know. And you arrive at the airport. Now what are we going to say? I said, shall we all run away? Each one in each direction, you see, because one of us might escape. They said, no, we just give it a bandhan, you know. We have to have faith. We gave it another bandhan. The taxi stops. We looked to the car next door. It was the car of Shri Mataji. Inside the car there was a very rich doctor, you know. He paid for the taxi. Dr. Rustam, you know. He paid for the, you know, there was really a close brush with death again. Many incidents, you know. At the airport, Shri Mataji worked on a man who was going bald. And she rubbed some of the amla hair oil on the head of that man. I felt jealous, you know. I was getting bald also, you know. I wish Mother had given me a bit of that oil on my head, but I couldn't say it. Mother was about to leave, so Mother went, you know. And then later on, Maria Amelia comes back. Oh look, Mother gave you this bottle of amla oil for you, you know. So Mother made it easy for us to see that even small thoughts, you know, she knew everything. Inspired by Shri Mataji saying about my girlfriend, you know, if you really love her, marry her. I thought, but I didn't love her, that's the problem, you see, but still I tried. I went to a home with the parents.
Should we leave that for another story?
Okay.
Madam Lynn.
Oh God. I've told all my stories in the books. Yeah, I don't know. I was always a seeker from early childhood. I remember when I was a kid, someone said to me, what do you want to do when you grow up, expecting, you know, marry a rich man, because that's what sort of people were to try and do when I was young. And I said, I want to find God, I want to give that wisdom of God to others. Of course, they thought I was quite mad. And then I remember when I was a bit older, there's that wonderful thing in the Bible where Lord Jesus gets stuck in the temple, and he has these discussions with the people in the temple, and his family can't find him, and he says, "Wist you not that I must be about my Father's business?" And that also was very much my sort of mantra as a child. I was always seeking, even when I was 10, 12 years old. And I don't know, I think I'm probably about the oldest person in the room here, but I grew up just after the Second World War, and I remember the first things I ever saw in the newspaper were these photos of atom bombs going off, you know. And if you grew up with that being drummed into your head, you know, the fact that we were about to go bang. And we used to have these sort of lectures at school about what to do when the bomb went off. If you were a thinking person, it did something to you, and I think really that was one of the things that caused the whole hippie generation, was we realised something had got to give, something had got to change. And an awful lot of us grew up feeling that way. So I thought I was going to find realisation. I was always looking for self-realisation. I thought I was going to find it at university, so I had a go at philosophy at London University, and luckily my professor was a very sensible man. He said, "You're looking for a philosophy of life, you will never find it at London University. Go and do a degree that doesn't impinge on your seeking." And I remember him actually using that word, seeking. Well, then things went from bad to worse, because unfortunately everybody basically got caught by something, and I got caught by drugs, and I got caught by false gurus. I got caught by the TM, but I realised in about 1978 it was wrong. And by that time I had this place which had actually been an academy where they sort of did all these ghastly things in Scotland, but anyway we kicked these people out. And I was desperately seeking, and went to an astrologer. Not something I'd usually do, but anyway I was pretty desperate at that time. I was a bit like John and his microbiotics and stuff. I was trying everything. I didn't ever try drugs, but anyway, everything else. And this guy was really strange, because he said, "Is there any question you want to ask?" And I said, "Yes, I want to know if I'll ever get my self-realisation in this lifetime." And he looks at the chart. He was the Indian version astrologer, and he says, "Yes, June the 8th next year." So I kind of forgot about that. And then I was reading, like Fergie, I sort of just got all the scriptures out, and went through them one by one. And I was reading the Shri Mataji Devi Bhagavatam, which is the stories of the goddess. And I remember I was saying, at this time I had a £350,000 bankruptcy court case against me because we'd kicked the TM out and they'd ripped us off big time and obviously were trying to bankrupt us. It said, and I've never found these words again, if you say these 3 names of the goddess, help will come within a day. And the next day, a letter came through the post. I was living in Scotland, in Perthshire, and it was a letter from David Prohl with a photograph of Shri Mataji, the classic photo. And he just said, you must come and see this lady, she is your only hope. Because he hadn't actually met Mother, but he'd been to a public programme in Caxton Hall. And enclosed a cheque for the train fare because I know you haven't got any money, which was pretty nice of David because he was also going through bankruptcy. Bankruptcy seemed to be the sort of name of the game for us at that time. And so anyway, there was David who'd given me his probably last 35 quid. Well, things got interesting after that because I took the train. I had to take the train from Rannoch Moor, which was a funny little station on the West Highland line, down to Glasgow, and then I had to change stations, and then I was due to meet Mother in, do you remember Maria, the Greek lady, in just outside Bedford? And I had to take the train to Birmingham, and then I was going to be taken to her house. So I get to Rannoch station, and there was this one man who was the porter, the station master, and everything else combined, in the middle of the moor, this tiny station, and I said, I've got to get to Birmingham, and he said, well, you're not going to make it because the train from Fort William's 3/4 of an hour late. It's going to be later by the time he gets to Glasgow. And I said, I've just got to make that train. I've got a really important meeting. So he said, well, don't worry, I'm the station master of Rannoch, although I'm the only person here. I'll ring up Glasgow, the train station for the trains going south, and I'll tell them that there's a really important person and that she has to, you've got to hold the train. And this was in the days when British Rail owned the railways, and they did not hold trains for nobody. So anyway, I get to Glasgow, and I took a taxi across Glasgow to the other station, and I get to the barrier, and the guy at the ticket collector, he said, are you the lady from Rannoch? I said, yes. He said, you get on that train. He said, they'll have your guts for gaiters if they know who you are. This entire express train had been held up for an hour for me. So at this point I knew something unusual was happening. So anyway, then I got to Birmingham station, and Balacaneson picked me up, and he had this funny little red Mini which he had in those days, and he drove me very sweetly and kindly to Maria's house. And it was a lovely summer day, June the 8th, of course. I didn't realise this till afterwards. The door, I remember the door of her living room was open. It was smaller than this, the living room. You remember we went there for Ganesh Puja in '82, Fergie? Got photos of you then. Quite a small living room. Anyway, she had a sort of garden door at the back, and I remember, and Felicity was there, and I remember sort of hovering at the back, and I just looked at Mother, and she was sitting on the sofa with the window behind her, and she was wearing a beautiful red sari. You know, she had so much hair in those days. And I just remember thinking, my God, this is who I've been looking for all my life. What went wrong, you know? Where did I get waylaid? And I just thought, this is the one. And she just said, come here. And I remember just walking straight up to her and kneeling at her feet and putting, and she used to have us put her head, our forehead on her feet, which I did. And then she sort of would put her toes up a little bit, indicating for you to sort of sit up in front of her. And that's right. And while I had my head on her feet, I mean, there was, forget Chakra Charlie, forget the introductory talks. I mean, it was just straight to Mother's feet. And when I was on her feet, I saw this image of a lady riding on a tiger with this wonderful hair and red sari and with all these weapons in her hands. You see, it was Durga, but I didn't I sort of realised because I knew quite a bit about the Indian tradition. But Mother said to me, she said, what did you see? And I said I saw a lady with, on a tiger, and she had all these weapons, and she had this wonderful hair, and she had this red sari. And she looked at me and she said, yes, that's me, but in another lifetime you're very super conscious. And that was my introduction to surgery. So I had no problems, like most of the people in this room, realising who I was in front of. considerable problems after that. I would like to say one thing about Grosvenor actually, though, which came to my head. When we got Chelsham Road sometime later, I had enough money down to £150. I mean, if we have time I can tell a bit about that story, but literally I bought that place for cash with 10p in the bank, because again there was this bankruptcy course sitting on my head, but somehow I managed to get enough money to buy Chelsham Road for cash. It was £41,000, rather cheap compared to what it's worth today, but and none of us had any money, and Shri Mataji wanted to come, you see, because we had this Bhumi puja, and we just didn't have the money to buy any money for food. And I clearly remember, I don't know if you remember this, but I remember sitting around the kitchen table upstairs there, and I was saying, what are we going to do? Because none of us got any money. We've got to buy enough money for a meal, because the people are all coming and Mother's going to expect a meal. And Grosvenor disappeared that afternoon. And I remember you coming back and putting £100 on the table, which was quite a lot of money in 1980. And it was enough for us to buy the food. And I said, Grosvenor, where on earth did you get that money? Because you were an illegal immigrant at that point, working with no work permit. I mean, the rest of us could at least go on the dole if things pushed to shove. And Grosvenor said, well, I took my bracelets to the gold exchange. And of all of us, you were the one who came up with the money for that first food, and I shall never forget that. I thought, my God, here's a real Sahaja Yogi. I mean, I was blessed with a bit of money to buy the place, although I had no money over for food. I bought the house, but I had no money to buy food. But Grosvenor was the one who really came up trumps, and I shall never forget that moment. And of course, Mother came, but that's another story. Okay, anyway, but it was, I was very super conscious.
That's a fantastic range of stories there. I mean, obviously, very special experiences. I mean, one of the things I think is particularly interesting about your generation, which we then experience, is this, of course, this blessing, if you like, to live alongside, the goddess as the mother, and this to us quite alien experience of having somebody, God mothering you, in effect, cooking for you and looking after you. I think that one of the things that later generations would be fascinated to hear would be what's that like? I mean, obviously it's very intense. Do any of you have any sort of particular experiences that you can remember where perhaps it dawned? Obviously Linda's first experience was that kind of experience, but I mean, where it dawned on you that this was God in a special way that you didn't even realise. Another stage that you didn't even realise when you had your self-realisation. Just where you said, oh right, okay, yes, I see.
I've got. It was when Mother was at Ashley Gardens, and she used to work on me an enormous amount, because I was, she just, at one point she said to somebody else, not me, she said I was the worst damaged person she'd ever met, and somebody else said I had half one chakra working still. I mean, I was really seriously bad state. But Mother, in her infinite compassion, used to have me round and work on me. And I remember she used to sort of sit with her foot on my back, and she'd be on the phone or reading a paper or something completely different, move her foot around. And anyway, and I was sitting on the ground and a floor, and she was on her sofa, and behind her was the window. And I remember thinking, I thought, Mother, here you are, you're looking beautiful, and behind you is the sky, and the sky is actually infinite, it goes on forever. And she picked up my thought and she looked at me and she said, yes, what you see is Mataji, but what is behind is vast. That's the story.
Anybody else? All gone thoughtless. I know, yeah. It does. What about particular experiences about her as the mother then, about, giving you advice or doing something for you which was sort of something that touched you in a way that you didn't expect?
Shri Mataji always used to kiss me, because I was quite insecure those days. My sort of situation was a little bit unstable legally.
100%.
Because of the visas and etc. So each time Shri Mataji saw me, she used to kiss me or hug me, and I just took it for granted. And I was so heartbroken when it stopped, because after a while, I had to be sort of grown-up girl, and not needing anymore of mother's attention and love. But it was quite extraordinary because I felt I really found my real mother. It was very sort of very personal feelings I had, and I needed that. I needed that very badly, and mother somehow knew that. Mother used to cook for us, and she used to do everything for us. Really, she used to entertain us instantly. When we went to Stonehenge, she bought us all ice creams. This was something. We traveled with her at the back of her car. We went to public programs, some of them at the back of her car. And when I first came, to me it was such a normal thing to do. And she used to just be so sweet. And I always, you felt that she knew exactly what you were feeling, what you were thinking, and she would respond to you on a different level. You just knew that she was just like, obviously she was just like your mother. You would imagine the best mother you could ever have, who knew exactly what you wanted, exactly what you needed, sort of like ideal. That was an ideal. And for me it was very moving because I never had this when I was growing up. So it was such a new experience for me, and I really felt like I was reliving my childhood again, and I was really being looked after in many ways. So that's what I wanted to say.
Yeah, she should be spoiling us all the time, and she was more like my mother than my mother, and I remember many times calling her mum by mistake, but she'd know how to touch your heart. Just the way she'd say your name would just spark something in you to melt your heart. She just knew, you can't really put it into words, but that love was there very strongly, and I feel that we all really needed that,
Well, you two must have you and Derek must have quite a lot of stories from building various houses in various parts of the universe, which the ones I've heard have been hilarious in ways, so in terms of this relationship and the things that happened. Derek, maybe you've got one that you can remember.
Yes, I would say a really nice story happened. There was a time when, this was in '98, and in Cabela, and somebody wanted to be in charge, but Shri Mataji had said to him, "You should just do carpentry," but he'd taken it badly. So he disappeared. So the next morning I had to go and see Shri Mataji. So she said, I walked up the stairs and I knew what was going to happen. So I had an old photograph of the house, how it was. So I walked up the stairs and she was sitting outside her room with Sir CP, outside by the two double doors, but just in between the two. And the big doors were open towards the fountain, and the other doors were closed. So I walked up and Shri Mataji's face was completely drained. For 2 weeks, all her windows were boarded up with plastic. She couldn't see no light. And I came up and she said, "You see that angel up on the wall there?" And there was some plaster mouldings that had been put. And she said, "John put that there." And I can see the love pouring off of this, little statue. And I was like, because I was looking, I couldn't see anything like pouring off. But she was saying there's all this love pouring from this. There was quite a few angels there, but this particular one, she said, the love is pouring from there. John has put it there. And then she said to me, "See the scaffold outside? The scaffold has to come down or something's going to happen." And immediately I thought, oh my God. It was like, I just imagined apocalypse. The whole of the creation is going to be destroyed. Everything's going to be. So it was like, it's like being in a movie. You see something, oh, beautiful, and then suddenly, there's going to be a disaster. And I'm thinking, oh my God. So she said to me, when she's talking about the ganas or the deities, she always says they. So she said, they say, you have to do the job. And I'm thinking, oh my God, the whole of everything rested on my shoulders. And I'm thinking, I said, what? She said, this scaffold has to come down. I want you to do this for me. And I was like, oh, yes, Your Majesty. So and it was like time stopped still. But then I realized, so I had a photograph in my pocket. So the way how the people were designing it was all wrong, which I knew. So I took the photograph out and I said, Your Majesty, I think if we redesign this plan this way, it will work better. She said, yeah, go ahead, no problem. So I put the photograph in back in my pocket. And I thought, wow. This is something which has got to be accomplished. But I don't want to see the consequences or think about, well, we just see what happens and maybe, or some disaster will happen. So in the end, everything worked out. But I was just thinking of how the two things at the same time, within a few seconds, like the moment. And then after it was all resolved, people were ringing up from all over the world, saying, Fergie, what's going on? Something's happened in the castle, and this and that. I said, what do you mean? They said, yeah, tell us, there's something going on, because Sahaja Yogis are quite sensitive. And I was trying to fob them off, I said, well, nothing. They said, no, tell us. So I explained the story of what happened, and they were saying, oh, wow, something had happened, which was part of historical context. So,
thank you.
Could I just say something in connection with what Derek is saying? Because it was like that. Because we didn't quite know what was going on the subtle level. And very often it was very, very intense. Because sometimes Mother used to say what the deities were happy about and what they were not. And the ganas as well. It was very, very intense. So you didn't know from one moment to the next where the fun stops and the serious thing starts, because they were together. You know what I mean? They were all together. It was so intense on very, very sort of deep level. So it was fun, but it was hard. It was also very hard to be in Mother's presence when her aspect of the goddess fighting the negativity was manifesting, because the negativity was also connected with us in a way, inside us, so it had to be thought, and we had to witness it, really, because we couldn't quite do it. The Mother had to do it, but the battle was in one room, it wasn't anywhere else.
Were you going to say something, John?
Well, yeah, she would often, as I was saying, completely spoil us, but there'd be the other extreme where we'd be completely blasted because the negativity would try to act through us, because we were around Shri all the time, and seeing Shri in a fury, I think that's the strongest I've ever felt. The vibrations, because she would just get everybody together, and one by one, she would, she'd go into that person, but the vibrations were so incredibly powerful. I've never felt any vibrations like it when Shri been angry. I mean, when she was angry with someone else, just being in the room, it was just so powerful. But she was actually giving her blessings, really, you know, because she's just driving a thing out, you know. Sometimes she'd have you on the run for days, weeks, you know, and it'd lead up to one almighty big blasting, you know. But it was all her compassion, you know, that I don't think we as human beings could ever understand, you know. That,
And the
compassion
I'll
of
tell you.
Oh.
Can I say a story about on the subject of building? Once Shri Mataji said we were at Brompton Square. Brompton Square was virtually finished by then. It was 83, looking absolutely beautiful, all golden, very wonderful. And we noticed there was just one wall had not been wallpapered. So we had this idea, me and Antonio and another guy. Let's wallpaper this wall as a surprise for Mother. Mother said she was going to go to an international conference. That conference she was going to leave about 3 o'clock. So, you know, if you really do it fast, by the time Mother comes back, she said she would come back the next day, early morning. That gives us plenty of hours. Let's wallpaper that whole wall as a surprise to Mother. So we waited for Mother to go, you know. We had this surprise prepared. Mother's looking beautiful, so beautifully dressed when she went to the international conference, and oh my goodness, we were really amazed, you know. The Mother knew what we were thinking. We were just waiting for Mother to go so we could do the surprise, you know. At last Mother left, you know, and CP, now we can decorate that wall. We started decorating the wall. 10 minutes later, Mother is back, you know. CP would often forget some important documentation, you know. This is quite common. And Mother caught us in the act, decorating the wall. So, what are you up to? Oh, well, we are decorating this wall. I see. Well, remember this, when you start something, it's not auspicious to leave it half done, so make sure you finish it, you know. If you start it, then finish it. If you must, take plenty of coffee, drink as much coffee as you want, but finish that, you know. And there's one more thing. Sir CP does not like a gap in between the wallpaper, you see. That looks very unprofessional. I'm sure you agree with that. When you put wallpaper, you mustn't leave a gap, you know. So she said, not because of me, but because of Sir CP, make sure it looks professional, you know. Of course, you know, Antonius a professional, you know, he's an artist. He would never leave a gap on the papers, neither us, you know. No, of course not, you know, no gaps, guaranteed. We finished the whole job by about 5 a.m., you know, and we double-checked and double-checked, no gaps whatsoever. We went to sleep, and about 9 a.m., there's a ring on the bell. You know, we were all asleep, we were all exhausted, you know. Could hear the bell ringing. Oh my goodness. Well, I'll go and answer the door. It was Shri Mataji, actually. So CP had gone straight to work. Shri Mataji was at the door ringing the bell. She said, I wasn't sure whether to ring or not in case you were resting, you see, but I checked the vibrations, and on vibrations I felt that one of you at least must be awake, you know. Yes, Mother was right, I was awake, so Mother came in, you know. Mother didn't look very pleased, you know. We could feel there was something wrong, you see. Mother didn't say anything about wallpapering, and she went to bed. She got up at about midday, you know. We went to see Mother, you know, and Mother was a bit gloomy. And we thought, my goodness, Mother should be very pleased with this beautiful wallpapering we did, you know. Mother's really gloomy and sad, you know. And then we said, Mother, didn't you like the wallpapering? Of course I did, very much, you know. So what's the problem? Well, Sir CP saw a very big gap on the wall, you know. That's not possible. We checked it 3 times, there is no gap whatsoever. Mother said, yes, I'm sorry, there is a gap on the wallpaper. Impossible, we checked it, you know. Absolutely not there. Shall I show you? So Mother stood up, went and showed us the gap. We look at the gap. Oh my God, what a gap on the wallpaper. I think it's called shrinkage. It shrank during the night or something. And really, we could have died that moment, all of us, you know. I said, don't worry about it, let's fix it, you know, with vibrations, you know, just push it. We didn't have faith for that, you know, so Mother started pushing the wallpaper, you know. And we were looking at Mother and I said, don't you help me, please? Are you just standing watching me pushing the paper? You push it too. So we all started pushing the wallpaper from all directions. The paper didn't budge a millimeter. I said, Mother, it's too late, it's totally dry now, overnight. There's nothing we can do, we'll strip it all and start again. No, you see, you don't get the point, you know. It's not you who pushes it, it's the vibrations that actually do it. Just push it, have some faith, you know. we pushed a bit more with Mother. We felt sorry for Mother. Mother was pushing the paper, never budged, nothing. No. So we knew we have to have a big meal now and get lots of cups of tea and courage, and we have to strip the paper. So we did that. We had a big meal, big cups of tea. You know, well, let's do it now. We have to strip the whole thing off and start again. You arrive there, the whole paper gap. Okay, where is the gap? Oh, it's here. No, not there. There. Where? Started looking. We couldn't find the gap. The gap was gone while we had lunch and a cup of tea. So the vibrations did it in the end, but not in front of our eyes. You know.
Any other miracles from Kay?
We need to change taste.
So Linda mentioned that there needs to be someone to go with Shri Mataji, and I agreed to go. It's quite chaotic in Chelsham Road, and to cut a long story short, I was literally running late. Shri Mataji was there with Pamela at the station, and I just literally ran into the station, bought the ticket, and then ran to the train, and I could see Pamela and Shri Mataji, but in the first class. I thought, oh God, I should have got a first class ticket. So I went in, and I said, I'm just going to have to go and change my ticket. Shri Mataji said, why? I said, well, I just didn't think, Shri Mataji, I bought a second class. She said, Pamela, go and change our tickets. I said, no, it's okay. You know, I sort of pleaded with Shri Mataji, but she wouldn't have it. She made Pamela go and change the tickets second class. So Pamela arrived back, and I thought, oh my God, you know, not only am I late, you know, Shri Mataji's changing her tickets to second class. So Shri Mataji was in the lead, and the three of us walked from carriage to carriage, and Shri Mataji went into the second class carriage, and it was completely packed. I thought, oh no, you know, I started feeling really guilty and centre heart and everything. Went into the next carriage, it was completely packed. So I think it was until the fourth carriage, it was completely empty. And Pamela sat down, and Shri Mataji's luggage or something was opposite Pamela, and then Shri Mataji sat down, and I sort of gingerly sat opposite Shri Mataji, feeling still quite bad about it all, but then the train pulled away, and I felt something in my lap. And it was Shri Mataji's foot. She said, rub my feet. I thought, wow, you know. So I started to rub her feet, and it was always different when you rub Shri Mataji's feet. Sometimes you felt quite hot or uncomfortable, other times you'd go into complete joy and bliss, and that was one of those times. I just went into this complete joy, you know, the vibrations would go right into your centre heart. You'd have a big whoosh of energy, and you just feel lots of love. And the only way I can explain it is that I just wanted to go into her feet, you know, in those moments. I just wanted to hug her, kiss her, and it was uncontrollable ecstasy, you know, bliss and everything, joy. And that went on for 3 hours. So that guilt and sense of heart just completely disappeared. And that particular weekend in Sheffield, Shri Mataji just completely spoilt me, always giving me her food, and that was one of the occasions when I called her mum, you know, by mistake, many times. So it went from feeling guilty and insecure to feeling complete joy and bliss, you know. So we were incredibly lucky to have that opportunity to, you know, touch her feet, put our head on her feet, to have that care and
best second class ticket you ever had.
Yes. Yeah.
Did she ever sense of humour, making you laugh, and you know?
Yes. I've got another one if nobody. Okay. She would have very fast, quick humour. Myself, Fergie was there, as many people working there. But there's an area of the house which was like an outside, it wasn't actually a courtyard, but similar to a courtyard, but much smaller. It was referred to as the well. And she was coming down the stairs, and she said to me, "Where's Fergie?" And I said, "I think he's in the well." And she said, "Who put him in?" I said, "Pardon?" And she said, "Little Tommy Finn." But she was so fast that it took a little while to get the joke, you know.
So, ladies, give me some experiences that you had. Individual start with Kay. Give me an experience that you can remember with Shri Mataji that was notable in your heart.
The wallpaper story just triggered a memory for me that we wallpapering in Shri Mataji's bedroom, and it's sort of a story to show that she's sort of correcting us all the time. And there was 3 of us all wallpapering on the one wall, so it was chaotic. You know, whoever was doing this bit was standing over there, we were crisscrossing each other, and I was getting glue on my head as somebody was up the ladder. And I was looking at all their other pieces of wallpaper, and they were kind of a little bit skew with little bit creases in them, and I was putting my piece up, you know, and I finished it. I thought, look back, no creases. It looked absolutely perfect, and I was looking down the wall at the others going, and Shri Mataji swept past and said, upside down, isn't it? No, it's not Shri Mataji, but it's too late. She was in another room.
Can you top that?
I was very shy. I was not as brave as all these yogis you see here, because since the beginning I was very, very impressed by Mother, and I would always stand at the back. You had to drag me, you know, to come and see her. And I remember that at the beginning, I mean, still now, I find much easier, you know, to communicate with her without her physical presence. I remember at the beginning, for instance, when they started to say that, you know, she was the Holy Spirit, and I thought, oh my God, I'd like to believe that, but Shri Mataji will have to prove me, you know. And I remember that these Caxton Hall meetings, you know, everybody was there, she was, you know, stroking everybody's hands, talking to everyone. She would always ignore me. And I was thinking, my God. But all the answers I wanted to have, she would give me during the talk, and she was talking one day, I remember, about the Holy Spirit, because Holy Spirit, you know, was a bit difficult for me to accept in front of my friends. I said, they're going to laugh at me because I'm going to come back with stories of Holy Spirit. And I remember that I was praying her on the way to that meeting, saying, okay, Shri Mataji, you know, give me a good answer, you know, show me, you know, who you are, explain to me about this Holy Spirit. And it was just in my head, and then I got there, and there was about 100 people, and again I was always at the back, and she gave an explanation during the talk about that, and then she went, like that, straight at me, right at the back. And I was so impressed, and I thought, my God, how does she know? I wanted to know that. So it happened in many instances. And so I always kept backward, but I got caught with problems of curtains in Shri Mataji's house. So one day I was there, I had to go because I couldn't find anyone. I was living in Chesham Road, and one day they wanted to have, they phoned, Mother needs some people to work in the house. So what I would do, I would phone other people around London, not to go. But that day there was nobody, I had to go, so I arrived there. And it was about curtains. And I'm very bad at measuring curtains. I mean, I don't know anything about sewing, cutting, all these things. And I remember that Mother, she took me down in the lounge, in the dining room, and she said, you see, Gilbert, now I want to make curtains there. Rosie is going to make them, Rosie Lyons. So you see what we need to do, we are going to measure, you are going to measure this, that, that, that. And she was talking to me, I went blank. I said, my God. I said, did you understand him? And I said, yes, Mother. And there I was in front of the window, and I said, what am I going to do now? So I said, okay, she wants to do curtains, I should measure. Vaguely I understood she wanted to measure, you know. And then she came back, you know, because there were so many people in the house working, doing different things. And then she came back, she passed, so, okay, is it going okay, Gilbert? Yes, 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 Mother. And I was thinking, okay. So I had a meter in my hand, I was trying to figure out, I don't know what. And then half an hour later, I was still there. So she came, she said, okay, have you understood? And I looked at her like this. She said, okay, I'm going to explain to you. Look, well, look, this measure, this, that, that, that. Look, okay. So you see, this is such and such meters, and she gave me, you know, I can't remember, maybe 2 or 3 meters, that. And I put it right in my head. I said, okay, all I have to do is to listen to Mother's measurements. That's all. And then it won't be wrong. It can't go wrong. So she gave me the measurement. You see, Gilbert, so I need this like that, and this like that. Now you can tell to Rosie when you go home. Thank you, Mother. Yes, okay. So I was repeating, you know, these measurements. I can't remember how many liters of this, that way, that way. And we were living in Nightingale Lane. It was in Nightingale Lane, something like that. No, because we were married. No, it was before I was married, so we were living in Nightingale Lane. And I went to Rosie. Rosie was very down to earth and practical. She was always at mother's house, doing all these things, very, easygoing. So I said, Rosie, mother gave me these measurements for the curtains. And she said, okay, what are they? So I gave her the numbers, the measurements. She said, are you crazy? She said. Then it means, we would need, kilometers of material. That can't be. I said, yes, Rosie, mother told me, I'm pretty sure you know this number. She told me, she said, no, it's far too much. I said, mother said, Rosie, I don't know. And then she phoned Shri Mataji. And Shri Mataji said, what? What did he not say to you? Of course not, it can't be, look. And then she said, I don't know why Gilmet panics for such small things. So I was always keeping. Another time also, she called us. Yes, it was again. It was we were living in Chesham Road. We were married. I had Fatima. And one day we got a phone call, I think it was Warren. He was at mother's house and he phoned saying, okay, could you come because mother needs some people. And again, I tried to phone other people, but I couldn't find anyone. I had to go. So I went there, and on the way I found Dania, Magda's daughter. She was there. We met, and she said, why are you going to Bottle Square? Yes, me too. Yes, I said, I got called. You know why? No, and mother wants to see us. We didn't know. So we arrived there. And I said, what is going to happen? So Shri Mataji was in her big bedroom. She had that nice bedroom. And then she said, I arrived there, and she said, okay, hello. She said, yes, I've called you, she said, to give you a lesson of philosophy, Indian philosophy. Okay. And we were with Dania. Mother said, don't panic. It will be very easy. You will have nothing to do. Just watch. And then, she had invited a group of ladies whose husbands were working with Sir CP. So there were people, from the diplomatic services. And all, they were from different countries. There was also a French one. Shri Mataji said, you will see there is also a French lady there, And all these ladies, arrived there, very superficial, blah, blah, blah. They were talking, not, and we were all there, and they were talking. And then, mother showed them the house, and there, I remember there was a lady, she spotted a tea cozy with pearls. It was white and with pearls. And the lady said, oh, how nice it is. Okay, you like it? Have it, mother said. So then, she was giving things away like this. And then it was lunchtime. She had invited them for lunch. And so Dania and I were just standing behind the table, serving, passing some dishes. And I remember the conversation. It was so strange because, I was used to see mother, giving her lectures, spiritual lectures. And then, it was just about trivial things, but the kind of love she was giving to these ladies, talking trivial things with them. Because they were talking about being fat, and wanting to be slim, So they were talking about that, going on diet. And I remember, so they were all saying, oh yes, I need to slim, this, I need, na. And Shri Mataji was there, looking at them, smiling, pouring love on them. And in the end, she said, yes, it's nice, but you see, after a certain age, it's also nice to have a bit of kilos on, And then they were talking about the traffic in London and about tube, very, 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 very superficial things, But what I could notice that day is that the kind of attention of love she was giving to these ladies was exactly the same she would give to us. Though, they were not interested by her spirituality or her, but it was quite amazing. Quite amazing. And in the end, they left. And she gave us a little present. I got a little Mangala Sutra. Dania got a little brooch. And then Shri Mataji, she thanked us in such a warm way. Thank you very much. You helped me so much. And we were just there, completely, flabbergasted because we thought, what help? We didn't give it. It was so strange. Yeah.
Carol, you've been quiet for a while. What have you got lurking in your breast?
Remembering, I think I was at Cheltenham Road when you went to see Mother at that time, Gilman. I remember you coming back and saying about those stories. It reminded me I was at Cheltenham Road at that same time. Mother had given Chantal, who's Ray Harris's wife, some very beautiful jewellery because they were getting married, and or they'd already got married. It was a pink jade in silver setting. And like you've all been saying, how Mother sort of feels what's in your heart, and I sort of felt, I've just got married too, and Mother didn't give me anything. You know, it's terrible, you feel those things. And then before long, I honestly can't remember whether we went to Brompton Square with Lewis, I think so, and Mother said, and she apologised profusely to me that she hadn't given me anything before already, and she went into her bedroom and she found something. She bought me a little pink jade necklace in a silver setting, very, very sweet and beautiful. I was going to wear it today, but unfortunately chain's just broken, and a beautiful bracelet. And I suddenly felt, gosh, pull my ears, feel how Mother just knows what's in your heart, whatever it is, and that she even apologised to me so much for, and she apologised to me that it was only something very little. It wasn't very, very special. It wasn't, so grand or so big as what she'd given to Chantal. And, so things like that.
There was an interesting miracle at the airport, Have you ever seen a man who is 7 foot tall, his hips are about this wide, and then the back, is even bigger, the size of his boots, in a kind of uniform, because he's a security man, and so he was there one day, one of those guys, about 7 foot tall at least. What a big man, I've never seen a person like that. And he started shouting at people at the back, move out of the way, everybody, you are blocking the traffic. Nobody reacted, for you would know that. Not emotion, you see. So he lost patience, and he started pulling people out of the way, especially women with pushchairs. And the women were jumping in the air with the pushchairs, one to the left, one to the right, and he starts making his way to go towards Mother, because Mother was the source of the blockage. Mother was sitting there, receiving flowers, And he started shouting at Mother, please get out of the way, get out of there. So I went to speak to him, very fast, because I must tell this man, look, this lady is a very spiritual lady, must respect, So I touched the arm, excuse me, sir, that lady. Did you touch the uniform? He asked me. Yes, sir, I touched your uniform. I just wanted to tell you, excuse me, did you touch the uniform? Yes, I touched the uniform, that lady, Did you touch the uniform? I said, yes, I'm sorry, I touched the uniform, Then he lifted his boot, you touched the uniform again, and your head will be under my foot. I was amazed, Then I felt 2 people push me from the back, and drag me to the back. These were some ladies, they said, Louis, shut up, leave him alone. And they helped me. That's it, I couldn't do anything. The man carried on going all the way towards Mother, pushing people left and right, already a bit more calm. He arrived face to face to Mother, he looked at Mother, Mother gave him one glance, and the man did like this. Went round Mother and disappeared and ran away. All Mother did was look at him. A man that size, we were all afraid of him.
That reminds me of the fire. You remember you had a can of the burning off the paint in Brompton Square.
This tells story.
Yeah, but I was there and I watched it, and the fire went just like that man, straight to Mother and right around it like that.
Yeah, went right round.
Yeah.
You have to tell the full story then.
Well, I think you have. What do you call them? The
Blowtorch.
Blowtorch, yes. And Linda.
Well, I got blamed for this in a rather unfortunate way. What actually happened was, I remember I was with Mother, and Oriel was there too, and I walked in the door. Now, my job at Brompton Square was always stripping the paint off. It was quite ironic actually, because I was brought up to rather a racist white, and after Brompton Square I lived first of all in India and then in Africa, So that cured my racism good and proper. But it was strange because my job at Brompton Square was always stripping the white paint off the doors and then having stripped them to paint them with dark brown varnish. But anyway, so I was pretty good at paint stripping, having done it for 8 months. And I'd also done quite a lot of paint stripping before when I was younger. I used to do it as a hobby. I used to buy furniture and strip it and sell it. That was in my teens. And I knew that the one thing you never did was left an oxyacetylene torch on. You never left it on because it's extremely dangerous. And as I said, I get blamed as a lecture where Mother says Linda left the torch on. And of course, as Mother says, what she says becomes the truth. But in fact, what happened was, at least as far as I remember it, maybe it is the truth, but I remember walking in that room, and I remember the whole of the floor was covered in chalk dust because with John, you and I think Pat were making those cornices in that room. And
no, I didn't make them.
well, anyway, somebody was making cornices. The whole floor was covered in chalk dust, and I saw that some idiot, it's the understatement of the century, had left this oxyacetylene torch on, pointing into the middle of the room. I mean, it's something I literally would never have done in a million years. Plus, I wasn't even stripping in that room anyway. I was stripping in another room. And Mother was there, and I've actually put this story in the book. And also, I happened to get a photograph of the sari she was wearing. She didn't, as you know, Mother doesn't usually wear synthetic saris, but that day she was wearing a synthetic sari, and which made it even more of a miracle. And Mother walked in the room and appeared not to see the torch, and the flame, the blue flame, it jumped out of the torch and it went towards her, and the blue flame went right round the sari in a flame, in a kind of ring of fire, and then went back to it. I by this time was lying on the floor because I just thought, my God, she's going to go up in smoke because it's a nylon sari. So I just jumped and I landed on my tummy because I just thought, well, I don't care if I break my wrist or whatever. I mean, you know, she's going to burn. So I just grabbed the torch to turn it the other way. And I think that's probably why Mother thought that it was me who had the torch, because I just dived onto the floor. And I remember the whole of the front of my tummy was just full of chalk dust because I just jumped onto the floor. And I remember her saying, "The fire cannot burn me, I am the fire." And Alison Ravina, I remember talking to Alison about this story, she said she remembers Mother saying, "The fire is just doing arti to me." Mm-hmm. And it was just extraordinary because that was a nylon sari, and that you remember that sort of blue flame, it went right round the sari, didn't it? It was just the most extraordinary thing. But as I said, I go down in history as being the one who left the torch lying around.
Well, Linda, interesting, because one of my first times going to the airport to see Mother before I was married, and being close to Mother, we were holding bits of Mother's luggage, and Mother suddenly turned to me and she said, "What were you doing going there to my house and doing namaskar on the pavement?" And Mother had just recently given a talk about not saying "but Mother," so Carol thought to herself, "Don't say "but Mother." So, and also Carol was thinking, "But Mother," inside I think, "Mother, you are the God, you're divine, you know everything, you know I didn't do this." And I just said to Mother, "I don't know, Mother," because I couldn't think of anything else to say which wouldn't start "but Mother." So I just stood there and Mother said, and just turned away and talked to somebody else. And years later, I think Louis can tell the rest of the story.
Yes, years later I went to see Mother, and Mother said, "Yes, your wife is very sensible, such a decent, good lady, you should listen to her a lot more, you know." Except I can't understand why she did that, you know. Going to the namaskar there on the floor, to that house where I used to live many years ago, that is so unlike her. But Mother, it wasn't her, it was someone else. What? And you didn't tell me? All these years, you know, I've been very confused because this doesn't go with her personality. You should have told me, you know. Well, we thought, Mother, that you, because of who you are, you know everything. Well, you have to tell me, you see. Mother said, these things you have to tell me, you know. It is confusing for the brain, yes. But there you are. Mother has a memory, she knows as well. And our character and personality and the memory is incredible.
I once asked Mother if she knew. When I was very first in Sahaja Yoga, I was rather stupidly, I said, "Mother, do you know everything?" told Liz this story earlier today, or I told somebody, and she rather, I think we were shopping or something, and we were in a very sort of materialistic environment, and she said, very casually, she said, yes, well, I can know every thought, word and deed of every human being from the beginning of time to the end of creation simultaneously if I want, but I can't be bothered.
On that note, I think we'll say thank you very much, everybody, for taking your time. It's been a fantastic experience again, and
Thank you.
may have you blessed with this again. So thank you very much. I can't be bothered.
But you see, Louis said something very interesting afterwards. He said that very often there are so many things your fairy mother doesn't know about you, and you think, well, let's hope she couldn't be bothered on that.
Yeah, that's one of the ones that's too cool.
Yes.
Yeah. You don't get away with that one very often.
I used to think that she didn't know what she did. Once that she didn't know. I used to be, oh, thank God she doesn't know what I'm thinking. She said she doesn't know what But she asked me one day to go in and choose a sari. She was going to an interview down at Brighton. She said, go in and choose one of my saris. Which one should I wear? And I thought, oh dear, this is universal. This is going to have repercussions if I don't get the right sari. And I wanted 2 rows of saris going round 3 walls, and you think, which one do you choose? Because one's always better than the other. And I thought, I've always loved that one with the little orange things on it, the little dots in it. And I came out and she must have gone, oh, she's taking so long. She'd already gone into the bathroom. So I left the bedroom and sat outside to wait for her to come out, because I hadn't told her which sari I'd chosen. But of course, she came out with that sari on out of the, must have been 700 saris in there. I think that was the one she was wearing. She was saying, so just be careful, I do know what you think.
Amazing.
About how when we think thoughts, and she was picking up people's thoughts, and she said, that's actually how it works. She was talking about the 100th monkey effect, and she said basically how it works is if we as Sahaja Yogis think good thoughts, that can go into the collective consciousness of the whole of humanity. If you read it, it's Mark Williams' story, and it's in the Pratishthan chapter at the end of the India book of the Recollections, if you've got that one.
It's a good memory.
But it's actually very important, because she says it's really important that we have very positive thoughts about everything, I mean, like if we sort of watch the news and we have positive thoughts, then it's likely that will happen, because what we think is actually seminal, it goes everywhere. And she said that's how the 100th monkey effect works on the level of humanity, and that's one of our roles as Sahaja Yogis. But Mark Williams tells very, very good stories, and that's one of his very, very good ones.
Well, actually, you can see how it's been proven by the fact that quite a lot of Sahaja terminology is starting to move its way out into the mainstream. I see vibrations in a lot greater, many more places than ever before. Do you notice that? Mm-hmm. I've seen somebody called that's got really cool vibration. Somebody just talking about something nothing to do with Sahaja Yoga. This is definitely the collective consciousness working out, and I've seen that in a lot more cases. I mean, even yoga itself. I mean, look where yoga is now as a concept, where it was.
It's quite acceptable.
Just unbelievable, the change in very short space of time. So we're clearly the enlightened attention is doing something, but that's just amazing.
I saw a big billboard one time, and there was a woman with a hand above someone's head.
Yeah.
Going like this.
It's all over the place. I saw a video the other day where they were working on something, and you could see it being sort of like purloined by various people, sort of skirting the truth, and then using our kind of our whole environment, our words and our actions and all those kind of things. I think it's amazing to see that stuff, which is great actually. I mean, I'm on a personal goal to get left sided and right sided into the collective consciousness. I want to be the first person to not a yogi. You're very left sided today. I think that'll be the win.
What about the centre channel? That's always
No, don't worry about that. we'll fight for that one later. Small battles, I think.
No, what they say now is they talk about people's ego with actors and stuff like that. It's got a big ego. People are sort of accept that's something not to have.
Yeah.